Deborah was the kind of girl everybody talked about in church, school, and even in the neighborhood. If you didn't know her, you had definitely heard about her. She was Pastor Samuel's only daughter, the quiet one who never raised her voice, never wore makeup, and never stayed outside past 6 p.m. People called her the perfect church girl. Even when her classmates were giggling in class or gossiping in the school hallway, Deborah would just walk past them with her head down, her Bible close to her chest, and her cardigan buttoned all the way to her neck. Everyone thought she was holy, but what they didn't know was that Deborah was carrying a heavy secret, one that was getting harder to hide every day. Every morning, she stood in front of the mirror in her small room, staring at her reflection. She would place both hands on her stomach and whisper, "Just one more day. Please, God, just let me survive one more day." Her stomach was getting bigger. At first, it was easy to hide. She wore bigger sweaters, pulled her skirts higher, and walked with her school bag held tightly to her front. But now, even her bag couldn't hide the bump. She had started walking differently too, slower, careful not to move too fast or draw attention. Her legs hurt, her back ached, but she had no one to talk to, no one she could tell, not even her own mother. That was the hardest part. Her mother always looked busy, cleaning, praying, or attending women's meetings in church. And even when she was free, there was this wall between them. They didn't talk about things like boys or emotions or fear. Deborah couldn't even remember the last time her mother hugged her. Everything at home was about prayers, fasting, and keeping a good name. And her father? That was a different story. Pastor Samuel was not a man you joked with. He didn't believe in second chances. He believed in rules. He believed that the only way to raise a good daughter was by making sure she never made any mistake. Deborah grew up hearing words like, sin brings shame, no sex before marriage, a girl must be pure, and if you lose your virginity, you lose your destiny. She didn't plan to break the rules. She really didn't. But one mistake changed everything. It happened one evening after Bible study. She had stayed behind to help clean the chairs. That was when Kelvin, a senior student who had just joined the church choir, came to help her. He was tall, soft-spoken, and had a smile that could melt a stone. At first, it was just friendship. They talked about music, schoolwork, and sometimes shared snacks behind the church after choir rehearsals. But slowly, things changed. He started texting her every night. He'd call her Angel and say things like, "You're not like other girls." He made her feel special, seen, wanted. One day, when no one was home, Kelvin visited. She thought he just came to drop off a textbook, but it turned into something else, something that left her shaking and confused. After it happened, Kelvin stopped texting as much. He became distant, and by the time Deborah realized she had missed her period, Kelvin had already moved to another town. His family had relocated, and just like that, he vanished from her life. No goodbye, no explanation. Deborah cried for nights, but crying didn't stop her stomach from growing. She remembered the day she found out for sure. It was a rainy Saturday. She had locked herself in the bathroom and used a pregnancy test strip she had bought secretly from a chemist. The 2 red lines appeared so fast that her knees went weak. She sat on the floor and wept quietly, afraid her mother would hear her. That night, she didn't eat dinner. Her parents thought she was fasting. Nobody suspected anything. Weeks passed. Her school uniform became tighter. Her sleep was restless. She began waking up in the middle of the night, soaked in sweat and fear. She stopped going out during break time at school. She started avoiding eye contact with everyone. Even her best friend, Esther, started asking questions. "Debbie, are you okay? You don't even laugh anymore," Esther had said one day in class. "I'm fine," Deborah replied, forcing a smile. "Just tired." "Tired every day?" Esther asked again. "Did something happen?" Deborah shook her head. Nothing. But deep inside, everything was falling apart. One afternoon, she was in class when a strong pain shot through her side. She held her stomach and bent forward slightly. Nobody noticed. She prayed under her breath, begging her body to behave. At home, it was getting harder to keep up the lie. Her mother started asking why her skirts no longer fit. She made excuses, said the tailor made a mistake. Pastor Samuel was too busy with his crusades and church programs to notice anything. Still, Deborah knew time was running out. One morning, as she walked to school slowly with her bag pressed against her belly, she saw two little children playing by the roadside. One of them was a baby boy about a year old. He had round cheeks and tiny legs. The mother was washing clothes nearby while the child laughed and played with a rubber ball. Deborah stopped and stared at the baby for a long time. Something inside her turned. She imagined her own baby, what he or she would look like, what it would sound like crying, what it would feel like to hold it. Then her eyes filled with tears. "I'm not ready," she whispered to herself. She walked away, biting her lips to stop from crying out loud. By the time she got to school, her mind was a mess. She could barely concentrate. Her body felt heavy, her eyes swollen from tears, her heart racing. She looked at her classmates and wondered what they would do if they found out. She imagined the whispers, the laughter, the judgment. But what scared her most wasn't her classmates. It was her father. She remembered one time in church when a girl from another parish got pregnant. Pastor Samuel stood on the altar and called her a disgrace to womanhood. He said, "Any girl who opens her legs before marriage has opened the gate of hell." People clapped and shouted amen. Deborah had clapped too back then, but now the memory burned her like fire. That night, at dinner, her mother served rice and stew. Pastor Samuel led the prayer as usual, quoting scriptures about purity and obedience. Deborah couldn't swallow a single spoonful. Her hands were shaking under the table. "My daughter," her father said, looking at her. "You are unusually quiet. Is anything wrong?" She shook her head quickly. "No, sir. I'm just tired from school." He nodded slowly. "Be careful, Deborah. You know who you are. Don't bring shame to this family." She nodded again, forcing a smile. Later, in her room, she knelt beside her bed and tried to pray. But all she could say was, "God, help me." Her belly was kicking now. The baby was moving. It was real. It was alive. And every time she felt that movement, her chest tightened with fear. She didn't hate the baby, but she hated what it would do to her life if anyone found out. She stared at her wall, imagining herself standing in front of her church, confessing to everyone. The shame, the insults, the looks on people's faces. She imagined her father collapsing on the altar in disappointment. "I can't," she whispered again. "I just can't." Her tears soaked her pillow that night, but even in her tears, she still hoped that somehow this would all go away. Maybe the baby would disappear. Maybe she would wake up and realize it was just a dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. And very soon, her secret would no longer stay hidden. Deborah sat up in bed, her hands gripping her stomach as another sharp pain twisted through her body. It was late at night. The house was silent. Her parents were asleep. But inside her, something was happening. Something she couldn't control. Her breath came in short gasps. The baby was moving again. But this time, it felt different. This wasn't just a kick. This was something deeper. Something that told her time was running out. She bit her lip hard, trying not to cry out. She couldn't make a sound. If her parents heard her, it would all be over. Her heart pounded as she swung her legs over the side of the bed. The pain was getting worse, spreading through her back and stomach. She tried to stand, but her legs shook beneath her. She wasn't ready for this. She hadn't planned for it to happen so soon. For months, she had managed to hide it, waking up every day pretending everything was fine. But now reality had caught up with her, and there was no running away. She closed her eyes, gripping the edge of the bed, whispering to herself, "God, please, not now, not here, not like this." But her body didn't listen. A wave of nausea hit her, and she staggered towards the door, moving as quietly as she could. She couldn't stay in the house. She needed to leave. She needed to get out before it was too late. She tiptoed to the door and pushed it open, praying it wouldn't creak. The hallway was dark, but she knew her way. She moved quickly, her breath shallow, her hands pressing down on her stomach to stop herself from crying out. She passed her parents' room, pausing for a second, listening. Silence. She kept moving. The front door was just a few steps away now. If she could just make it outside, she'd be safe. She reached for the door handle. Then she heard it. A cough. Her blood ran cold. She turned her head slowly and saw a shadow moving in the dark. Her father, Pastor Samuel, stood in the doorway of his room, his tall frame barely visible in the dim light. "Deborah?" His voice was deep, rough from sleep. "Where are you going?" Her throat went dry. Think. She forced herself to swallow, gripping the door handle tighter. I needed some air. Silence. Even in the darkness, she could feel his eyes on her, heavy, searching. "You are going out at this hour?" His voice was sharp now, suspicious. "What kind of air are you looking for outside?" Her stomach twisted painfully, but she forced herself to stay still, to act normal. I couldn't sleep," she whispered. More silence. She held her breath, waiting, praying he wouldn't ask more questions. Then finally he exhaled. "Go back to bed," he said firmly. "You shouldn't be wandering around at night." Deborah nodded quickly, stepping away from the door. She turned and walked back to her room, feeling his eyes on her the whole time. When she got inside, she closed the door and leaned against it, her hands trembling. That was close. Too close. But she couldn't wait anymore. The baby was coming, and she had to get rid of it. The next morning, Deborah could barely walk to school. Every step felt like a knife twisting inside her. But she forced herself to keep moving. She had no choice. She couldn't let anyone suspect anything. She made it through the first lesson, then the second, but by the third period she was sweating. Her hands trembled as she gripped her pen, trying to focus on the teacher's voice. But all she could feel was pain. She wasn't going to make it through the day. She raised her hand. "Please, sir, can I go to the sickbay?" The teacher barely looked at her. "Go quickly." Deborah grabbed her bag and hurried out of the classroom, her legs shaking. But she didn't go to the sickbay. She knew they would ask too many questions. Instead, she rushed toward the old science building, the one place no one ever went during school hours. Her breathing was heavy now. Her vision was blurry. The walls around her seemed to close in as she stumbled into the empty storeroom at the back of the building. The pain ripped through her. She sank to the floor, biting down on her sleeve to keep from screaming. Tears streamed down her face. She couldn't do this, but it was happening. She had no choice. She gritted her teeth and pushed. The world around her faded. Minutes passed. Hours. She didn't know. And then, tiny cry. Deborah's breath caught in her throat. It was done. She looked down, her hands trembling. The baby was small, wrinkled, covered in blood. It moved, letting out another weak cry. Panic shot through her. No. Couldn't cry. Someone would hear. Her hands shook as she wrapped it in her school sweater, pressing it tightly against her chest. She had to do it now. She staggered to her feet, her body weak, her vision swimming. Step by step, she made her way out of the storeroom, down the back staircase, and into the open air. The dustbin was right there. Her chest tightened. She forced herself forward, her legs like stone. 1 step, 2, 3. She reached the bin. She looked around, no one. Her breath came fast and uneven. She hesitated. The baby let out another cry. Tears filled her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't have a choice." She closed her eyes and dropped the baby inside. The tiny cry stopped. She turned and walked away, her whole body shaking, her hands wet with sweat and tears. It was over. Nobody would ever know. Or so she thought. Daniel had been watching her. He had seen her sneaking around, holding her stomach, moving like she was carrying a heavy secret. He had followed her out of curiosity. And now, standing in the shadows behind the old building, he saw everything. The way she dropped the bundle into the dustbin. The way she wiped her eyes and hurried back inside. Daniel's lips curled into a smirk. So, the holy Deborah had a secret after all. He stepped forward, his mind already working on how he could use this to his advantage. For the first time in weeks, Deborah felt relief. She made it through the rest of the school day without breaking down. By the time the final bell rang, she felt lighter. The weight on her chest was gone. She could go home and pretend nothing had happened. She could start over. She could be free. But as she packed her books, a shadow fell over her desk. She looked up. Daniel. He was smiling, but there was something strange about it. "Hey, Deborah," he said, his voice low. "Can we talk?" Something in his eyes made her stomach twist. "What about?" she asked, forcing her voice to stay calm. Daniel leaned in, his lips barely moving. "I saw what you did." Deborah's heart stopped. The world around her went silent. She stared at him, unable to breathe. Daniel smiled again. "I saw everything," he whispered. Deborah felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Her secret wasn't a secret anymore, and Daniel wasn't going to let her forget it. Deborah didn't sleep that night. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, her body still sore and weak. Her heart wouldn't stop beating fast, like a drum in her chest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel's face. His strange smile, his whisper, his cold eyes staring into her soul. "I saw everything." Those 3 words kept ringing in her ears. She wanted to believe he was bluffing. Maybe he didn't really see anything. Maybe he was just guessing. Maybe he only saw her walking around the science block and assumed something. But deep inside, she knew the truth. His eyes had told her everything. He had seen it all. And now he had power over her. That morning, she dragged herself out of bed. Her legs heavy, her stomach still sore. She didn't want to go to school, but she had no choice. If she stayed home, her parents would start asking questions. She dressed slowly, her hands shaking as she buttoned her shirt. Her fingers paused halfway. What if Daniel had already told someone? What if everyone in school knew already? What if the teachers were waiting to call her out? She swallowed hard and pushed those thoughts away. Maybe he wouldn't say anything. Maybe he would just keep it to himself. But as she walked through the school gate and stepped into the hallway, she saw him again. Daniel was leaning against the wall near her class. His hands were in his pockets, and he was watching her. His eyes didn't blink. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He just stared. Her throat went dry. She walked past him quickly, keeping her eyes straight. But just before she reached the classroom door, he called her name. "Deborah." She froze. Slowly, she turned. "Yes." "Don't act like you don't know me," Daniel said, still standing calmly. "I didn't say I don't know you. You were pretending." Deborah looked around. The hallway was still empty, but she didn't feel safe. Her palms were already sweating. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I already told you. I saw everything. You want me to say it louder?" "Please," Deborah said quickly, panic in her eyes. "Please don't." Daniel raised one eyebrow. "Why not? I thought you were the good girl, the pastor's daughter, pure and holy. But now I know who you really are." Deborah's lips trembled. I made a mistake." He laughed softly. "Mistake? That was more than a mistake. You had a baby and threw it in a dustbin. That's not just a mistake. That's a scandal." Tears filled her eyes. "Please, Daniel, I'm begging you, don't tell anyone. Please." He tilted his head, as if thinking deeply. Then he said, "Maybe I won't, but it depends." "On what?" He smiled again. "On you." That was the beginning of her nightmare. From that day, Daniel followed her everywhere. He started sending her messages in class. He would leave tiny notes on her desk, saying things like, "I can still talk if I want to. You owe me your silence. Be nice to me if you want your secret safe." First, Deborah tried to ignore him. She told herself it would stop, but it didn't. Instead, it got worse. One afternoon during lunch break, she was sitting quietly in the corner of the classroom when Daniel walked in and sat beside her. "You haven't smiled today," he said. She didn't reply. "Are you angry with me?" She stared at her desk. "What do you want from me, Daniel?" He leaned closer. "I want you to talk to me. Be nice. Be friendly. You don't have to be so uptight." "Is that all?" "For now." Deborah looked up at him. Her eyes were filled with fear. What does "for now" mean? It means I haven't decided yet. But if you behave well, maybe I won't ask for more. She stood up quickly, her chair making a sharp noise. You're blackmailing me. Big word, he said, shrugging. But yes, and there's nothing you can do about it. She walked away, tears burning her eyes. She didn't know where to go. She just wanted to hide. But there was no place to hide from Daniel. The next day, he followed her to the school library. When she tried to leave, he blocked her way. Why are you avoiding me? He asked. Because I'm tired, she said, her voice shaking. You're tired of keeping secrets? I'm tired of being afraid. He smiled coldly. Then maybe you should stop making mistakes. Her hands clenched into fists. I didn't ask for any of this. Well, you should have thought about that before opening your legs. Deborah slapped him. The sound echoed through the quiet library. For a moment, everything froze. Daniel touched his cheek slowly, shocked. You slapped me? I'm not your toy, Deborah said, breathing hard. You don't get to speak to me like that. Daniel's eyes narrowed. You'll regret this. I already regret everything. She stormed out, leaving him behind. But she knew she hadn't won. She had only made things worse. That evening, she sat alone in her room, shaking. What if he told everyone now? What if he went to the principal? What if he showed someone CCTV footage? What if he had proof? She hadn't even thought about that. Her mind raced. Had he somehow gotten a copy of the school camera footage? Was there a camera near the dustbin? Near the storeroom? She didn't know. She wanted to ask someone. But who would believe her? Who could she trust? She couldn't tell her mother. She couldn't even imagine the look on her father's face. No, that was impossible. She didn't eat dinner that night. She just sat on her bed, arms wrapped around her knees, praying for a way out. Days passed, and Daniel didn't stop. He started sitting beside her in class. He would touch her arm, whisper things in her ear, sometimes laughing like they were friends. But Deborah knew what he was doing. He was controlling her. Bit by bit, he was turning her into a puppet. One afternoon, he sent her a note. Come to the back of the school after closing. We need to talk. Don't be late. She didn't want to go. Every part of her wanted to run far away. But she went, because deep down, she was afraid of what he would do next. She waited behind the classroom block. He came a few minutes later, walking slowly, his hands in his pockets. You're here, he said, smiling. What do you want this time? I've been thinking, he said calmly. Maybe I've been too gentle with you. Deborah stepped back. What are you talking about? You think you're strong now because you slapped me, but you're not. You're still scared, and I can smell fear. Just say what you want, Daniel. He looked at her for a long time, then said, I want more than your attention now. She felt cold all over. What do you mean? I want you to spend time with me. Be with me. You know what I mean. Deborah's mouth dropped open. You want me to sleep with you? He didn't answer. He just stared at her. She shook her head slowly. You're disgusting. You don't have a choice. I'd rather die. Daniel stepped closer. Don't be stupid. If I talk, your life is over. You know that. One word from me, and your father's church will collapse. You'll be thrown out. You'll become a story on everyone's lips. I don't care anymore, Deborah said, her voice trembling. Let them know. Let them all know. At least I'll be free. Daniel stared at her. He hadn't expected that. You think I'm bluffing? He asked. Deborah turned to walk away. Do whatever you want. But her steps were heavy. Her heart was still full of fear. She wasn't brave. She just didn't want to feel like a prisoner anymore. That night, she didn't cry. She just lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling again, thinking. The walls were closing in. She couldn't live like this anymore. She had to find a way out. But how? The next day in school, something strange happened. Mrs. Janet, the school counselor, called her into her office. Deborah, sit down, she said kindly. Deborah sat, her heart pounding. Did I do something wrong? No. I just want to talk to you. I've been watching you. Deborah looked up, confused. Watching me? Yes, Mrs. Janet said gently. You've changed. You're not yourself anymore. You look tired, scared, and distant. Something is not right. I'm fine, Deborah said quickly. Mrs. Janet leaned forward. I'm not your enemy, Deborah. You can tell me anything. I won't judge you. I just want to help. Deborah bit her lip. The tears were already forming. I can't, she whispered. Why not? Because if I talk, everything will scatter. Mrs. Janet reached out and held her hand. Sometimes things need to scatter before they can be fixed. That was the first time Deborah felt a tiny drop of hope. Maybe she didn't have to carry this alone. Maybe someone could help her. Maybe. Deborah sat there in Mrs. Janet's office, staring at the floor. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were red, but she was holding in the tears. Her heart felt heavy like a stone sitting on her chest. Mrs. Janet didn't rush her. She just sat quietly, waiting. The silence in the room was calm, not loud, not heavy. It was the kind of silence that made you feel safe, like someone was holding your hand without touching it. After a few minutes, Deborah spoke softly. Ma! Yes, Deborah, Mrs. Janet said, leaning forward gently. I didn't plan for any of it. I swear. I believe you, Mrs. Janet said kindly. Take your time. Deborah nodded slowly. Her voice was shaking, but the words had already started coming out. Once the door of truth opened, it couldn't be closed again. I got pregnant, she said, just like that. No big words, no long sentences, just the truth. Mrs. Janet didn't gasp. She didn't shout. She didn't even blink. She just nodded and said, Okay, I'm listening. Deborah's lips trembled. I didn't tell anyone. Couldn't. My father would kill me. Not with his hands, but with his face. With his words. With the shame. Mrs. Janet nodded again. What about your mother? She wouldn't understand. She would just say I'm cursed or something. That I've brought disgrace to our home. And the boy? The father of the baby. Deborah's eyes dropped. He's gone. His family moved away before I even knew I was pregnant. He never even said goodbye. I'm so sorry, Deborah, Mrs. Janet said softly. Deborah shook her head quickly. No, don't pity me. That's not the worst part. Mrs. Janet didn't say a word. She knew what was coming next. I gave birth, Deborah whispered. Right here, in school. Mrs. Janet gasped slightly this time. Not in judgment, but in shock. What? When? Last week. In the old storeroom behind the science block. Mrs. Janet's eyes widened, but she stayed quiet. Deborah's hands started trembling again. I was in pain, Ma. I didn't know what to do. I just went there. I didn't want anyone to see me. I didn't want my classmates to know. I didn't want the teachers to find out. And the baby? Mrs. Janet asked gently, though her voice was beginning to shake. Deborah's lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked away. Deborah, Mrs. Janet said again, her voice low, soft like a whisper. Where's the baby? I threw it in the dustbin, Deborah said, her voice cracking. I wrapped it in my sweater, and I dropped it. Mrs. Janet closed her eyes for a moment. Was the baby alive? Deborah nodded slowly. It was crying. I heard it cry. Mrs. Janet stood up quickly and walked to the window. She was trying to hold herself together. The story was painful, but she didn't want to make Deborah feel worse. She turned back. You mean the baby was alive? And you left it in the trash? Deborah broke down in tears. I didn't know what else to do. I was scared. I was shaking. I didn't want to kill it. I just wanted it to go away. I thought someone would find it. I didn't want it to die. Mrs. Janet came closer and knelt beside her. You were scared, I understand. But this is serious, Deborah. Very serious. I know, Deborah sobbed. I know I've done a terrible thing. Mrs. Janet held her hand gently. You need help. You can't keep carrying this alone anymore. Deborah looked up. What happens now? Are you going to tell everyone? I'll have to report it to the school authorities. But don't worry. I'll handle it carefully. You're not alone in this anymore. Deborah shook her head fast. Please, Not my father. Don't tell my father. Please. Mrs. Janet sighed. We don't have a choice. But I promise you, I'll be with you every step of the way. You've suffered enough. That same day, a school meeting was called. The principal, vice principal, and a few senior teachers gathered in a quiet room. Deborah sat at one end of the table, her head low, her hands tight together in her lap. Mrs. Janet sat beside her. The principal, Mr. Ojo, looked serious. He removed his glasses slowly and placed them on the table. Deborah, he said, is everything we've heard true? She nodded without lifting her head. Mr. Ojo sighed deeply. This is unbelievable. How could this happen inside our school and nobody knew? Mrs. Janet spoke up. Because she was too scared to tell anyone. She was living in fear. The vice principal leaned forward. Where is the baby now? The baby survived, Mrs. Janet said. A cleaner found it. The school nurse rushed it to the clinic. It's in the hospital now. Everyone was silent for a moment. Then the principal turned to Deborah. Do your parents know yet? Deborah shook her head slowly. No, Mr. Ojo nodded. We'll have to invite them. There's no other way. That was the part she feared the most. More than punishment, more than expulsion. Facing her parents, especially her father. That evening, a letter was sent to Pastor Samuel, asking him to come to school the next day. Deborah didn't go home that night. Mrs. Janet took her to a quiet staff room and let her sleep on the couch. Just rest tonight, she said kindly. You'll need your strength tomorrow. Deborah nodded, though sleep never came. She just lay there, curled up, her heart beating like a drum. Morning came too fast. By 10 a.m., Pastor Samuel had arrived. He wore a white shirt and a dark tie. His Bible was under his arm as usual. His face was firm, his eyes sharp. He walked into the principal's office with a quiet anger in his steps. Deborah sat at the edge of the chair, her fingers locked tightly together. Deborah sat at the edge of the chair, her fingers locked tightly together. Good morning, Pastor, the principal said. Good morning, he replied, his voice cold. What's the problem with my daughter? Mrs. Janet glanced at Deborah, then said, Please, sir, let's sit down first. Pastor Samuel sat, though his face was already tense. We brought you here today because something serious has happened. The principal began slowly. It concerns your daughter. Pastor Samuel turned to Deborah quickly. What happened, Deborah? What is going on? Deborah couldn't speak. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. Mrs. Janet touched her hand. Deborah, tell him. Her father's eyes grew sharper. Tell me what? Deborah finally looked up. Her mouth opened, but her voice cracked. I got pregnant. The room went quiet. Pastor Samuel blinked twice, as if trying to understand what he just heard. What did you say? He asked, his voice low. I'm sorry, Daddy. I didn't mean to. I was scared. His face turned pale. You did what? I didn't plan it, Deborah cried. It was a mistake just one time. He left me. I didn't know what to do. Pastor Samuel stood up. You're lying. Not my daughter. Not in my house. It's true, Mrs. Janet said calmly. She gave birth here in school. In the science storeroom. He turned to her sharply. What kind of school are you running here? What kind of useless environment is this? Mr. Ojo stood. Pastor, please don't raise your voice. My daughter is not this kind of girl, he shouted. She can't be. She was raised better than this. Deborah was sobbing now. I'm sorry, Daddy. I didn't want to bring shame. I just wanted to hide it. Pastor Samuel pointed at her. You've destroyed everything. You've ruined your life. You've ruined this family. Mrs. Janet stepped in. Sir, please. She's still your daughter. She needs help, not condemnation. She needs punishment, he shouted. This is what happens when children leave the path of holiness. Deborah buried her face in her palms. I didn't mean to disgrace you. He turned to Mr. Ojo. I will take her home now. This school has already failed her. She's not going anywhere yet, Mrs. Janet said firmly. You may be her father, But she's not safe in your house right now. Pastor Samuel frowned. Are you saying I'll hurt my own daughter? I'm saying she needs emotional care right now, not anger. He didn't reply. He just picked his Bible and walked out without another word. Deborah sat there shaking. I knew he would hate me. Mrs. Janet hugged her gently. You've told the truth, Deborah. You've done the hardest part. You should be proud of that. But Deborah didn't feel proud. She felt empty. She had finally told the truth. But her world had just broken into pieces. And deep inside, she knew this wasn't the end. Something bigger was coming. Deborah sat by the window in Mrs. Janet's office, staring out at the school field. Students were laughing and playing, moving around like nothing had happened. But everything had changed for her. Her life was no longer the same. It had been 2 days since her father walked out of the school. 2 long, silent days. He hadn't called. He hadn't come back. Not even her mother had reached out. Deborah had hoped just maybe they would try to talk to her again. But nothing. She felt like she had been thrown away, just like the baby she left in the dustbin. She hadn't even asked about the baby. She was scared to. What if it had died? What if she was already being hated outside and didn't know? Mrs. Janet walked in and smiled softly. You didn't eat your lunch. I wasn't hungry, Deborah replied, her voice low. You've been like this all morning. You're quiet, you're pale. Talk to me. Deborah shook her head. What else do I have to say? Everything is already scattered. Mrs. Janet sat beside her. You still have a future, Deborah. You're still here. You're alive. Deborah's lips trembled. But no one wants me. I do, Mrs. Janet said quickly. I see you. I believe in you. Deborah turned to her slowly. Even after what I did? You're not a monster, she said gently. You were just a scared girl trying to survive. Deborah looked away again. I don't know how to fix myself. Don't try to fix yourself alone. Let people who care help you. There was silence between them for a moment. Then Mrs. Janet added, There's something I didn't tell you. What is it? The baby survived. Deborah turned sharply. What? The baby is alive. It's in a hospital under care. Healthy and breathing. Deborah's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Jesus. You should see the baby when you're ready. I'm not sure I can. I'm afraid. It's okay. When the time is right, you'll know. Just then, a knock came on the door. The principal entered, holding a small phone in his hand. His face looked serious. Mrs. Janet, Deborah, we have a problem. They both turned to look at him. What is it, sir? Mrs. Janet asked. He sighed deeply. There's a video going around. A video? Deborah said, her heart starting to race. Yes, someone leaked a clip from the school's CCTV. Deborah's body froze. What clip? Mrs. Janet asked, though her voice already sounded worried. The clip shows Deborah near the dustbin, dropping something. Deborah's mouth dropped open. No. How did that get out? I don't know, the principal replied. But it's already spreading. Parents are calling. News reporters are asking questions. It's everywhere. Mrs. Janet looked at Deborah. Did Daniel do this? Deborah's face went pale. He warned me. He said he had footage. I didn't believe he would actually leak it. The principal's phone rang again. He picked it up, spoke briefly, then turned to them. The press wants an official statement. They want to come here. Deborah stood up in panic. What do I do now? I'll be known everywhere. People will laugh at me. I'll be called names. You didn't kill your baby, Mrs. Janet said quickly. You didn't throw it in fire or water. You were just scared. We'll tell your story the right way. I'm finished, Deborah said, tears running down her face. No, Mrs. Janet said, standing beside her. You're not finished. This is just the beginning. That same evening, the school gate was full of reporters. Some stood with microphones. Others held cameras. Students and staff were watching from windows and corners. One reporter shouted, "We want to speak with the pastor's daughter." Deborah sat in the principal's office, watching it all from the window. Her heart was thumping. Mrs. Janet held her hand. "You can choose to hide, or you can speak." "I don't know what to say," Deborah whispered. "Tell them the truth. Your own truth." After a moment, Deborah nodded. She stood up slowly, wiped her eyes, and walked to the door. The school opened the gate. The reporters gathered around. Cameras flashed. Questions flew from every side. "Why did you throw your baby in the dustbin? Did your father force you to hide your pregnancy? Did the school try to cover it up? Where is the baby now?" Deborah took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. "I'm not proud of what I did. I was afraid. I didn't know what to do. I thought my life was over. I didn't want to kill my baby. I just didn't want anyone to find out. I was tired of hiding. I was scared of what my father would do. I was scared of the church. I was scared of the world." She paused and looked at the crowd. "I'm not evil. I made a mistake. But I want to change. I want to heal. I want other girls like me to know they are not alone. You don't have to hide. You don't have to carry shame forever." The crowd was quiet. Some people lowered their cameras. Others looked down, touched by her words. That night, Deborah's story was on TV. But it wasn't the way she feared. It wasn't just a scandal anymore. It became a story that touched hearts. People started talking. Some supported her. Some attacked her. But the world had heard her truth. The next day, Pastor Samuel came to school again. But this time, his face was different. He looked tired, not angry. His eyes were no longer sharp. His steps were slower. He asked to see Deborah. She met him in the counselor's office. The room was quiet. The air was heavy. He sat in front of her and sighed. "I saw your interview," he said. Deborah didn't speak. "I felt ashamed. Not just because of what happened, but because I realized I never really knew you." Still, she said nothing. "I was too focused on raising a perfect daughter. I forgot you were human." A tear rolled down his cheek. "I'm sorry, Deborah." Deborah looked at him. "Do you really mean that?" "Yes," he nodded. "You didn't fail me. I failed you. I created fear in my own home. I didn't raise you to talk to me freely. That's why you suffered alone." Deborah wiped her eyes. "I wanted to tell you so many times, but I saw how you spoke about girls like me in church. I knew you would hate me." He swallowed hard. "I didn't hate you. I hated the idea of losing control. I was wrong." He stood up and held her hand. "Can we start again?" Deborah nodded slowly. For the first time, she saw her father. Not the pastor, not the preacher, not the loud man on the altar, but a broken father trying to fix what was left. Later that week, Daniel was arrested. The school discovered he had stolen the CCTV footage from the admin office using a spare key he got from a junior staff. He had copied the video and leaked it online. When questioned, he confessed everything, including how he blackmailed Deborah and tried to manipulate her. The school expelled him immediately. His parents were called. The police took him in for cybercrime and harassment. Justice was served, but Deborah didn't feel happy about it. She didn't celebrate. She just felt empty, tired. One afternoon, Mrs. Janet came to her and said, "Would you like to see the baby?" Deborah froze. "I don't know if I'm ready. There's no pressure, but the baby is safe. He's beautiful, and he's waiting." Deborah nodded. "Okay, I'll go." The hospital was quiet, clean, calm. When the nurse brought the baby out, wrapped in a soft blanket, Deborah's eyes filled with tears. The tiny face, the soft breathing, the little fingers moving gently. Her baby, her heart melted. She reached out slowly and touched the baby's hand. He grabbed her fingers softly, like he knew her. Tears fell from her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Mrs. Janet placed a hand on her shoulder. "He forgives you already." "I want to be better," Deborah said. "For him. For me. You're already on that path." Weeks later, Deborah transferred to another school in a different town. Not to hide, but to start fresh. A new place. A new beginning. She went for counseling every week. She started writing in a journal. She joined a support group for young girls who had gone through similar pain. Slowly, she healed. She didn't become perfect, but she became stronger. One evening, As she sat in her new room holding her baby and feeding him, she smiled for the first time in months. She looked at his tiny face, then whispered, "You saved me. Even when I tried to throw you away, you stayed. You survived. You gave me a second chance. And that was the real story."